The following episode contains details of an attempted suicide. If you or someone you know has had thoughts of suicide or expressed thoughts of suicide, please do not hesitate to call the Suicide Prevention Hotline by dialing 988, or you can text TX to 741-741. There are counselors standing by 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are also counselors who speak Spanish. Listeners' discretion is advised.
What do you do when life feels insurmountable, when the weight of despair threatens to drown you? For Joseph Lenard, the answer emerged from the depths of his own struggle. Born and raised in Michigan, Joseph encountered the darkest moments of his life as a suicide attempt survivor. Yet, he transformed his pain into purpose. Now, an Amazon best-selling author of Terror Strike, coming soon to a city near you, Joseph shares his journey of resilience and reminds us that every life has value, even when we may not see it. Join me as we explore his story, his insights on overcoming setbacks, and how we can all be a beacon of hope for others.
Sometimes life gives us lemons. Sometimes it gives us lemonade. Other times it gives us something entirely out of left field that makes us say, WTF. But no matter what obstacles come, there is most often a way out on the other side, and we are once again victorious. My name is Dr. Rowe, and you are listening to my podcast about resilience. Every guest shares a tragedy to triumph story to give listeners like you the inspiration to push through every single day. Listen now as my next guest shares how they were life-jacked.
Hi, Joseph. Welcome. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show. How are you?
It's my life philosophy. I always say, been saying it for decades, so I had my character say it in my book. Could always be better, often be worse, right? And I am Joseph M. Lenard, and yeah, it looks French. It's not Lenard, it's Leonard without an O. And I have to use my middle name, because if I'd internationally published earlier, it would have been Joseph Lenard. But there is a Joseph Lenard out of South Carolina, so I've got to use my middle initial to make that distinction.
Oh, wow. How about that? Well, actually, as a matter of fact, Joseph, can you please share a bit about your upbringing in Michigan and how it shaped the person you are today?
Yeah, well, winter's bah humbug, right? But
I cannot stand the cold. That's why I like being down here in Texas.
yeah, well, I played hockey growing up, so you would think the cold wouldn't be a thing for me, but it is. And in 2001, my health declined, not 9/11 related. I have to make sure I mention that. Being the author of a book on terrorism, they hear 2001, they assume 9/11 related, not just coincidentally that year. And so with my health being in decline and suppressed, immune system problems and that, the cold becomes a lot more of a problem than it ever used to be. And I think that's true, though, for most of life in general. When we're younger, we're more resilient, right? And we can handle extreme temperatures one way or the other a little better than... Yeah, even in general, aging, I think that's true. And with me, with health, it's because of the health decline, it's even worse. But, family, friends, whatnot, I want to stay here.
That's wonderful. Now, you mentioned being a suicide attempt survivor. So if you don't mind, can you, and hopefully you feel comfortable, you can walk us through that experience and how did you end up seeking out help?
Yeah, well, it's never really comfortable. It's not like something I want to do, but something that I feel I need to do. Friend at one of the local radio stations years ago did a suicide. And at that moment, I realized, well, I should share so I can potentially help others. Because everybody's situation is different. You can share some things that might help, might relate. So I called in, and ever since then, I realized I need to talk about that, and that's why there's a suicide prevention sub-thread in Terror Strikes coming soon to a city near you. But, and again, for everybody, we're all different. You know, we all have similar DNA, but we're all unique individuals, and as the saying goes, your mileage may vary, right? So no one's situation is identical. But for me, my health was in decline. There was a lot going on. I was indeed depressed. But for me, in that moment when it happened, it was as if it wasn't me. I was there. I was present. It was my body, but it was almost like an out-of-body experience. I was on Xanax. I took my daily Xanax dose, put the pillbox back down, no issue. And then all of a sudden, here I find myself taking a few more, then a few more, then a handful, then the rest of the bottle.
Wow. And so it just kind of took on a life of itself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like I said, it was an out-of-body experience. It was as someone else took control. You know, I don't say that to try to, deflect or divert. It's just such a weird thing to try to explain. But I don't say that as an excuse that it wasn't me. Well, it was me. Obviously, somewhere in my brain that really had it dead set at that point to do that, took control of the rest of my senses, and it happened. And the next thing I know, I wake up in the hospital.
And so do you think that it was strange that a doctor who was prescribing you this medication, because I know, of course, there's an opioid crisis. And so
this was before that, for the most part, so.
Gotcha. But still, don't medical doctors have a responsibility to their patients, right, to protect them?
Well, yeah, but I wanted it. I needed it at that time. It's not as if I was not taking something that I didn't feel I need. To this day, there is a prescription bottle of Xanax sitting on my counter over there, but I don't take it unless if I really feel I need it. I mean, the ultimate responsibility relies upon ourselves as long as we understand, what it is. And I did. I understood it could be a physically addictive thing. And indeed, when it came time that I didn't feel I needed it on a daily basis anymore, like especially after the suicide attempt, to scale it back, to that point, I was trying to scale it back and come off it. And indeed, was going through physical withdrawal issues. That's the opioid part of it. But I don't have an addictive personality. So I can and will be able to say no and come off something. But it took several attempts, and it actually took that suicide attempt to fully do it, to be able to come off it, because there are indeed physical withdrawal. But, it's got to eventually be mind over matter. Your will has to be able to overcome what your body is craving. Who's in charge? You, the drug.
No, I understand that. So what drove you to seek help?
Well, I didn't really seek help in regard to this, other than the fact that once I woke up in the hospital, I was kind of in the system and realizing that I needed to deal with what just happened. I mean, there was no choice other than if you put yourself into denial, you're going to end up right back where you were.
No, that totally makes sense. Now, your journey from a challenging path to becoming a best-selling author is so inspiring. What motivated you to write this first book?
Well, yeah, it's my first internationally available published book. I've been writing my whole life. Back to my background, I grew up in a musical family. My dad had a band. Their albums are still out there, Ted Leonard Jr. and the Polka Kings. Well, I wasn't into following in the family footsteps of having a polka band, but I did write and record various music in the late 70s and 80s. But unlike now, where anyone can record and drop something digitally online and sell direct to people, I wasn't good enough to get a record deal. So I just continued writing other things. And then finally, eventually, I thought, well, let's reach beyond, the current scope of people that read my stuff to a next and higher level. And again, with that suicide attempt, feeling now a calling to reach out to others, because indeed all life has value and meaning, and we'll get into that a little more later, whether we see it or not, a necessity to share that with others on a much bigger scale to get that message out.
And you often speak about resilience. What exactly does resilience mean to you?
Well, it's to go back to everybody is different. We're all individuals. So what it means to me may not be important to someone else. Everyone's definition of resilience is, again, going back, kind of a joke. But your mileage may vary. We've got to keep a sense of humor these days, or we'll go crazy with all the serious stuff that's going on. Just a willingness to show up and try. You've got to be willing. Even the Bible, me as a Christian, there is distinction between unwilling and unable. Some days, indeed, you might, for whatever reasons, be unable. But if you're unwilling all the time, that is a problem. A distinction and a difference between those who are unable to do things and those who are unwilling to seemingly ever even attempt to do things to make their situation better, let alone life better for everybody else.
How do you think individuals can cultivate resilience in their lives exactly?
Well, that is a good question, and I think one above my pay grade. Again, with our individuality, it is a tough question to answer. We each have to be able to look inside ourselves. I was speaking with somebody else, an interview with someone for my Constitutionalist Politics show the other day. And usually I like to, and there's they're not TV ads, radio ads right now about, reaching children. Sometimes they may not always be able to express themselves, so do it through music. I'm glad they came up with those ads, because I've always thought that in that conversation with Frank Tall, I brought up Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror, or if you prefer, Rick Springfield does a song called Prayer. I send a prayer to heaven to be a better man than the man I see. Kind of his Man in the Mirror version. And that's it. We've got to be able to honestly look at ourselves, look inside, know who we are, what indeed our strengths or weaknesses are, what we really, and be honest with ourselves about that. Then it is, okay, what can I do? How hard can I push for better? And because there's no such thing as perfect.
No, that's true. There is no such thing as perfect. Now, you mentioned that, and you mentioned it earlier, things can always be better, but can often be worse. Can you elaborate on that perspective and how exactly has that influenced your outlook on life?
Yes, I say that to people all the time, right? Because I know a little pleasantry. How are you doing? Okay, I have that ready-made answer now. I use it all the time. And like I say, I have my character Martin in Sheriff Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You say it to try to help spread that philosophy. And it's just common sense when you think about it. And it is something we all need as a personal mantra. Because indeed, don't get me wrong, I vent. I whine, I moan, I complain, I'm human, like everybody else. But when I do, I've trained myself to repeat that in my head. Could always be better. It could often be worse. There's a whole lot of other people I know absolutely have things far worse than I, especially here in our Western culture, that we have so much that we become complacent, we become expectant, we too many feel entitled to things, but we have such abundance here. We've become so spoiled, and we often can forget so many people have it worse. We could be in such a worse situation or position. We have to be thankful, whether you're religious or not, thankful to God or thankful to yourself or thankful to whatever, whomever, that we have the abundance we do and that equality of opportunity to achieve and obtain things that whatever is our pursuit of happiness allows.
No, absolutely. Many of my guests talk about having a support system or having a network of people that helps them push through because those are the people that are cheering for them. Those are the people that are on their side. And you talk about your sister, right? Your sister has played a role in your journey towards healing and resilience. Can you talk about that relationship and how exactly did she support you?
Yes, I think just being there, again, to say we are all different, we are all individuals. I cannot tell someone else who is depressed, just, hey, snap out of it. Their situation is not my situation. All I can do, all she could do, all anyone can do is, hey, I'm here for you. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a psychiatrist, though I did study psychology to a degree. To a degree, I mean that as the general, statement. I didn't get a degree in that, so that's probably the wrong word to use there. But the point being is everyone being different, we can only just be there, and if and when you're ready to talk, I will listen. I may say something in return, but again, understand and accept I'm not a professional, but I'm here. I'm a friend. I'm family. I'm whatever, and here to help you. Like I said, I played hockey growing up. Well, I watch a lot of NHL games. They have a PSA that's suicide prevention called Embrace the Awkward. And I absolutely love that TV campaign because there's a bunch of different people they show, going, I don't know what to say. And that's the point. Embrace the awkward. You see someone that you know isn't quite themselves right now. Why? Embrace that awkwardness. Reach out to them and say, look, I don't know if I can help you, but I am here to try to help you. And if I can't help you, together we will find someone, someplace that can help you.
I love that you just said that. Embrace the awkward, because a lot of times it is awkward. Sometimes you can see people, right, and you know that something is not quite right. You may not know them on a first-hand basis, right? But like the people you work with, but you know that something about them is not quite right. But it's kind you feel awkward, right, trying to address it and approach them because you're like, well, I don't really know them that well. But you're right, just saying like, hey, do you need some help? I can come and help you, like I get you to the right place.
Like, don't jump to the conclusion because they seem a little off and go up and say, are you suicidal? Just wrong approach. Like, just, just general. It seems like there's something up, something off. Is it me or is there something up? If you want to talk, I'm here. I may not be able to help, but I'm willing to try. And if I can't, I will help you find someone who indeed can help with the whatever it is. And maybe it's just that, they're run down and they're just a bit off. It's nothing major. But don't pass that chance that it could be something that could be fatal if you don't intercede.
Now, you draw parallels between our lives and the famous 1946 film, It's a Wonderful Life, that is shown every Christmas, every holiday, starring, of course, James Stewart and Donna Reed as George and Mary Bailey. Can you explain how you see the impact we have on others, even if we don't recognize it?
Yeah, and I even put this in Terror Strikes Coming Soon to a City Near You. To me, that's perfect to explain it. You're not likely to get a clearance come down to try to help you. I say be someone's clearance. Right? AWL is a very overly dramatic movie, as they often are, to make a point. It, of course, makes several points. As we've already said, your life has value and meaning whether or not you happen to see it at the moment. And unlike It's a Wonderful Life, IAWL, most people's lives are not that majorly dramatic where you save somebody from drowning. Therefore, you help that person, and who knows what that person then does. It's like the Pantene commercial. One tell two people, they tell two people, they tell later a million people. It's a movement, right? You don't know the ripple effect some minor things you do, aside from that overly dramatic thing of saving somebody from drowning or stopping the pharmacist from incorrectly mixing something that would then kill a child and destroy many people's lives. Clarence shows George that, well, you're not likely to have those blatant, very dramatic instances or examples to point out. But minor things we don't think about. We just cast aside, never consider as could be a major thing in someone else's life. You, if you're not feeling it, fake a smile to somebody who then generally smiles back. You both end up then feeling better. And then that person may have been having a bad day, go down to affect somebody else who is having a bad day. And like the Pantene commercial, sooner or later, you have a movement growing and everyone else's lives are better. And that ripple effect, you don't know. I like to say, because I had cancer, leukemia in 2010. It's why I've got no hair on my head. I didn't choose the hairstyle. It chose me. So I just keep shaving it now after it came out. But I like to say, you help someone who was indeed down that rabbit hole you didn't understand and may save their life. And again, in return, you may never know that happened. But then their child they have later goes on to cure cancer. Your small act, whatever it was, de facto, in some small way, helped cure cancer. You never know the effect you actually have on the broader reality. You don't know, you may never know, but it's there.
No, absolutely. It's very interesting how this small shift in time that will make just a split second decision or just a choice between A or B. It is amazing how, yes, it can cause a ripple effect just from us intervening.
Yeah, well, you shift in attitudes around, again, adopting the philosophy. Could be better, could be worse. So while I may complain, I recognize and need to understand to put my mind right. It could be a lot worse. I was also on a worldwide threat show, since I have a book about terrorism, obviously, and that mindset kind of thing came up again. We all know the fight or flight. Well, I say those aren't the only options necessarily. Fight, flight, or fade, right? If you're in a situation, you have to at least adopt the mindset now. Something could happen that I'm not prepared for. They're generally called a black swan event. Something massive happens that you could not prepare for, but I say you at least can mentally prepare for anything and adopting the mindset that I will be a thinker, not a panicker, because panic often makes matters worse. So while I can't predict a bad situation I might land up in, like a terrorist attack going on around me, but I resolve in my mind right here, right now, this moment, I will not panic and make matters worse for myself and others. I will take and understand fractions of a second. I will have to decide, but think. Fight is usually not good for most people because you're not trained to fight and may not have something to fight with in that moment. Flight gives to the sheeple panic, like at an Ariana Grande concert years ago. Something happened inside. What happened isn't important or the point, because the people panicked, created a stampede. People got injured and died because they got trampled to death. They took the flight aspect, they panicked, and they made matters worse for themselves. In that case, if you're 50 yards, 100 yards away from whatever it was that happened, fade into obscurity of the threat's presence. If you're not in that immediate orbit, if you fade, hide behind the chair till first responders have a chance to come in and take control of the situation and fight for you on your behalf because you couldn't fight. So we have to resolve to make sure we think things through, not just feel and immediately react without thinking in any given situation.
Now, with your book, Terror Strike, coming soon to a city near you, you address suicide prevention. What message do you hope it will convey? Or do you hope it conveys?
We've said it a couple times already. All life has value and meaning, whether we see it or not, especially in any one given moment, especially if we're indeed in a funk, in a depression. Your mind is working against you at that point. You have to, again, be resolved that you will think things through and not give into negativity, the negative thoughts, the negative feeling, and remember the It's a Wonderful Life movie and how it would apply. Things you've done, things you will do will matter whether you see it or not, realize it or not at any given moment.
Now, in a world where many people do, in fact, feel isolated, how do you actively create and nurture supportive communities?
Yeah, especially coming out of the Wuhan hysteria. He issued press releases during the lockdowns because indeed more and more people weren't just feeling isolated, they were in a sense almost forced into an isolation. And again, your mind might take over. We mentioned music, the creed, the Christian group, my own prison, right? In your mind, things can sometimes seem dire and far worse than what they are, and that things will get better. It might not happen tomorrow, it might not happen next week, next month. You do not know what tomorrow brings, I like to say, until you until you seize the day, seize the moment. And while things might not appear good now, you don't know what may come later. And as you said, I went from suicide attempt survivor to #1 Amazon bestseller in several categories. Now, again, that's my life. That's not your life or someone else's life. And again, you may never achieve or even think or want to even attempt to become a writer of books. It doesn't matter. My whole point all the time is little things can matter.
No, little things absolutely can matter. Well, lastly, what advice would you give to someone currently struggling with their mental health or perhaps feeling hopeless?
Yeah, let's talk to someone. Again, they may not necessarily be able to help you, but you need to try to work through things in your own mind by having conversations with others. Because some people, a lot of people actually, I think, our own sense of pride that we don't want to admit to things or talk about things might not be so great in our life. We tend to want to go back to music. The Who, East Townsend, Eminence Front. We all put on this face out there a lot of times and refuse to talk about some things that we could use help with and would not just help ourselves, but help others if we address it.
Well, Joseph, thank you for your candidness and for sharing your incredible journey with us today. Your story of resilience not only inspires, but also serves as a powerful reminder to all of us about the importance of hope and the value of every life. So how can listeners find you, listen to your podcast, and connect with you, or purchase a copy of your Amazon best-selling book, Terror Strike, coming soon to a city near you?
Well, it is, of course, available internationally. And I actually do pretty well in Australia through Booktopia for some reason. Thank you all in Australia. So, it's available anywhere books are sold. If you have a local mom and pop bookstore, I'm very pro shop local. If they don't have it, they can get it and special order it for you. Or, of course, 80% of almost all books are sold on Amazon. So, of course, It's on Amazon. But beyond that, additionally, foremost, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's important as we're here demonstrating, talking about things in order to make sure we're in a good space about things. And of course, I have the website, Joseph M. Lenard. Again, it looks like Lenard, but it's not French. I haven't dug deep enough in the woodpile to know what it really was, but it's actually Polish somehow. Leonard Olowski at some point or something. I don't know. But it's Leonard without an O. Joseph M. Lenard.us. No such thing as perfect. An answer could always be better, but like the philosophy, remember, it could be worse, right?
Absolutely. So I guess those are your last words of encouragement for the listeners. I love it. Things could always be better, but they can most often be worse. Love it. Love it. I appreciate the insights you've provided and look forward to seeing the impact of your upcoming projects and listening to episodes of your podcast. Thank you, Joseph, for being a beacon of light in the conversation about mental health and resilience on Life's Back the Resilience podcast. I wish you and your family nothing but blessings and abundance. Please take care.
You too. Thanks again for having me.
Joseph Lenard, everyone. If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide, it's crucial to seek help. You are not alone, and there are people who care and want to support you. Please reach out to a mental health professional, call a suicide hotline, or talk to a trusted friend or family member. In the United States, you can contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255, or you can text HELLO, HELLO, to 741-741 to reach the crisis text line. For those in other countries, please look for local resources available to you. Remember, your life is valuable, and there is hope for a brighter tomorrow. Be sure to join us next time for more uplifting stories and insights on resilience. Until then, keep pushing forward, embrace the journey, and remember that every setback can lead to a greater comeback. Dr. Rowe, signing off.